I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. It was a video message from Mrs. Thompson, our old neighbor. I hadn't heard from her in years. Just her name on my screen brought back memories I thought I'd buried. The message was short, no greeting, no context, just one line. "I'm so sorry about your parents." I can't believe what I saw today. My stomach tightened. I tapped on the video. It was a church, a familiar one, St. Mary's, the same place where they used to take me for Christmas Eve services when I was little. The camera zoomed in slowly on two figures standing at the podium. My parents. My mother, dressed in black lace and pearls, dabbing fake tears. My father, stiff and solemn, reading from a paper with shaking hands. Behind them, a casket, and next to that casket was my photograph, large, framed, flowers around it. I froze. "No?" My father's voice echoed through the phone. She was always a troubled girl, but we loved her. We did everything we could. My vision blurred. He was reading a eulogy, my obituary. "Though she left this world far too young, we pray her soul finally finds peace." What? I wasn't dead. I was standing in my apartment, alive, breathing, shaking. This couldn't be real. I scrubbed the timeline back, played it again and again. Their faces didn't change. Their voices didn't shake from grief. They were calm, controlled, performed. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. What the hell is going on? I whispered aloud. Why are they doing this? I hadn't spoken to them in years, not since they cut me off, disowned me like I was a stain on their reputation. But to hold a funeral? To declare me dead? The more I watched, the colder it got. My mother mentioned how tragic my accident was. There was no accident. My father talked about my final years spent in isolation. I was working, living, surviving. They knew that. They had to. So why? Why were they doing this? I sat down slowly, the phone still playing. The video ended with the camera panning to the mourners. Distant relatives, family friends, even my childhood piano teacher. All there, all dressed in black, all believing that I was gone, dead. And no one had even tried to reach me. I played the video again just to be sure I wasn't imagining it, but the truth was clear. They didn't just erase me, they buried me alive. And in that moment, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I believed family meant protection, loyalty. That illusion shattered 3 years ago, the day I was thrown out of my own life like trash swept under a rug. The truth? It wasn't me who stole the money. It was Sophia, my younger sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She embezzled nearly $80,000 from our family's business account. She was reckless, addicted to a lifestyle she couldn't afford. When the numbers didn't add up and the books caught fire, our parents needed a scapegoat. And I was convenient. I still remember the exact words my mother hissed at me in the kitchen. "Better one ruined daughter than two." My father didn't even look at me when he said it. "You humiliated us. You're no longer our daughter." The next morning, I was gone. No money, no explanation to anyone, just silence. I tried calling, texting, I sent letters. Nothing. My number was blocked. When I reached out to close family friends, they suddenly stopped responding. One by one, doors that had always been open slammed shut. I became a ghost, not just to them, but to the entire world that had once known me. Eventually, I did what broken people do. I left. I moved to another state, took a job in a cafe, changed my number, learned to live quietly. I didn't post online. I barely spoke my name. But even then, deep down, I held on to hope. Hope that someday, someone, anyone, would call, ask if I was okay, tell me it had all been a mistake. That day never came. Instead, something worse did. Last year, I tried renewing my old email, but it wouldn't go through. When I contacted support, I was told the account had been deactivated due to a report of user decease. My name, Amara Johnson, had been marked as dead in their system, officially, digitally, completely. They hadn't just disowned me, they erased me. I couldn't sleep that night. The video played on the loop in my mind, their voices, their fake grief, my face next to a casket I'd never seen, my own funeral without me. Something wasn't right. So I started digging. First, I called my Aunt Linda, my mother's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years, but she always used to sneak me candy at family reunions. She answered on the second ring.
Hello, Aunt Linda, it's me. It's Amara.
Silence. Then click. She hung up. I called again. Blocked. Next, I tried my cousins. One sent me a thumbs up emoji and never replied again. Another asked, "Is this some kind of sick joke?" No one believed I was me. Except one, my youngest cousin Ethan, the one who always looked up to me when we were kids. He texted back, hesitant.
Amara, are you really alive?
Yes.
I need to know the truth. What did they tell everyone?
The typing bubble blinked for a long time. Then,
They said you died in a car crash out of state 3 years ago.
my stomach dropped. They had a whole story. Said it happened while you were traveling, that it was too late to bring you home, cremation, closed casket. I nearly dropped my phone. There had never been a car crash. I'd never even owned a car while away. Something in me snapped. I pulled out every document I had, passport stamps, rental records, immigration papers. I had never been in an accident. I had never gone missing. So I checked the public records office online, and there it was. Amara Johnson. Date of death, July 16th. Cause, road accident. Status, deceased. Certificate ID, ARF 91327. They forged it. They made me legally dead. I stared at the screen frozen. This wasn't grief. This wasn't denial. This was a cover-up. But what were they hiding that was worth burying me alive? I should have stopped digging, but once you realize your own family buried you alive, you have to know why. I found my answer in a place I hadn't looked in years, Sophia's Instagram. She'd gone public again, and there it was, a glittering carousel of images, white roses, champagne fountains, a diamond the size of a small planet. Sophia's wedding. Everyone was there. Aunt Linda, smiling like she didn't hang up on me. My cousins, clinking glasses. Even great Uncle George, who lived in another state and never showed up for anything. But not me. Not one mention, not one photo, not even a wish Amara could have been here caption. I was gone. Erased. Like I never existed. Until I looked closer. In one of the photos taken at the reception, there was a speech in progress, a toast. Her husband stood smiling, and next to him, my father, holding a wine glass, speaking into a microphone, grinning. Under the caption, "To the one daughter who always made us proud." And there it was, the switch. Not just forgotten, replaced. Curious, I searched the family business registry. A few clicks, and my blood went cold. The trust fund my grandparents had left for me, college, startup money, everything, was transferred to Sophia 6 months after my death, legally, quietly. She didn't mourn me. She profited off me. I stared at her smiling face, white dress sparkling in the sun, and it hit me. My sister didn't just replace me, she erased me. Enough was enough. If they wanted me dead, they were about to see just how alive I really was. The next morning, I walked into a law office with a stack of documents and a fire in my chest. Passport stamps, employment contracts, tax filings, lease agreements, flight records, proof. Unshakable. Unforgivable. The young attorney across the desk looked stunned. You're challenging your own death? I slid the forged certificate across the table. I'm not dead, but I plan to haunt them. He blinked, nodded slowly. Then we'll start with a fraud complaint and a motion to revoke the declaration of death. It'll take time, but legally, I don't have time, I cut in, because apparently I have a memorial this Sunday. He looked up. I didn't flinch. Earlier that day, a message came through from an unknown number. Just one line. They're holding a memorial for you next Sunday at St. Mary's. No name, no explanation. But I knew the church. I knew the address. It was real. And so was my plan. I stood at the window of my apartment that night, the city lights glittering below me like sparks waiting for gasoline. They dressed me in lies, buried me in silence, pretended I never existed. But now I had a stage. Let them grieve, let them cry, let them perform. And when the curtain lifts, let's give them a funeral to remember. St. Mary's had never looked so full. Cars lined the street like a parade of grief. The heavy doors of the church stood open just long enough to let in mourners dressed in black, weeping, whispering, hugging each other like tragedy had touched them personally. I watched from across the street. Black coat, sunglasses, still invisible. It was surreal, like watching a play about a character who looked like me, sounded like me, but wasn't me at all. Inside, the performance had begun. The organ played something slow and tragic. Candles flickered beneath my photo, the same one they used on the fake obituary. I remembered the day it was taken. I was smiling for real back then. My father stood at the pulpit, face solemn, voice just loud enough to carry. She was troubled, but we loved her. She lost her way, and though we couldn't reach her, we never stopped praying she'd come back to us. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing tears with lace-trimmed tissues like she'd practiced for weeks. Her sobs were delicate, perfect. And Sophia, she stood, pearls clutched like they were keeping her heart from falling apart. My sister Amara was complicated, but she was mine. I wish I could have said goodbye. A lie wrapped in a tear, tied with a bow. I stepped closer to the door, just enough to hear it. The priest raised his hand solemnly. May she rest in peace. I exhaled slowly. Not yet. The show was still going, but the main character hadn't arrived. Let us now stand for a moment of silence. The priest's voice echoed through the church like a final curtain call. Everyone rose to their feet, heads bowed, eyes closed, hands folded politely over hearts. And in that breathless pause, I pushed open the doors. The sound was sharp, deliberate, two heavy oak doors groaning open like a tomb splitting in half. The cold light from outside poured into the church, spilling down the aisle like a spotlight, and I stepped into it, slowly, deliberately. Each heel strike on the marble floor echoed like a gunshot. Click, click, click. The silence cracked open, gasps. A few people turned, then more. Whispers bloomed like wildfire. Is that? It can't be. A child's voice pierced the tension. Mom, isn't that her? I took off my sunglasses. Eyes met mine, wide, disbelieving, terrified. My mother's face went pale, her lips trembled, then she crumpled. A hard, theatrical faint. Her body dropped like she'd rehearsed it. My father's mouth hung open, wine glass slipping from his fingers. It shattered against the pew. Sophia locked eyes with me and froze, her jaw clenched, her pearl necklace twisting in her grip. A half-full glass of champagne tumbled from her hand and splashed across her perfect white shoes. The priest, stunned, took a step back. I kept walking. Every eye in the building followed my steps, like they weren't sure if they were seeing a ghost or a reckoning, and maybe I was both. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My presence was the thunder after the lie. The consequence they prayed would never come. By the time I reached the front of the aisle, the room was holding its breath. I turned, faced them all, and smiled. Let the truth begin. I stood at the front of the church, beneath my own portrait, the same photo they used to eulogize me, to bury me. I turned to face the crowd, dozens of eyes staring at me like I'd risen from the grave. Good. Let them look. I cleared my throat once and spoke into the silence. I heard I died, but I'm here to correct the story. A ripple went through the room. No one moved. Some had phones in their hands but forgot to blink, let alone hit record. There was no accident. No tragic car crash out of state, no closed casket because the body was unrecognizable. I pulled a folder from my coat, thick, stamped, sealed with government marks and interstate dates. These are my passport stamps, my employment records, tax filings, apartment leases. I've been alive. I've been working. I've been surviving. The only thing I lost was them. I turned to my parents. They told the world I died, faked the documents, filed a certificate. And when I was legally gone, I turned my eyes to Sophia, who stood frozen, fingers clenched around her pearls. They transferred everything to her. My trust fund, my inheritance, my life. Sophia opened her mouth, tried to speak. I didn't let her. Don't enjoy the house you bought with my money. A murmur rose like thunder behind me. Someone whispered, "She's got proof." Another gasped, and then a phone lifted, red dot blinking. Someone was filming. Good. Let the world see this funeral for what it really was. Not a farewell, a cover-up. You didn't lose a daughter, I said, staring my father down. You threw her away, and now you get to watch her walk back in. The lies were ashes, and I had just lit the match. I turned back one last time. My father's face was pale, my mother still trembling in her seat. Sophia, hollow, defeated. No pearls to clutch now. You buried me to protect yourselves, I said calmly. But I came back to haunt you with the truth. No more shouting, no more lies, just silence. Heavy, final. As I walked out, the church bells began to ring. How fitting. A funeral bell. But this time, not for me. Montage. I handed the documents to my lawyer, signed the final page, watched the death certificate get torn in half. My legal resurrection was official. An investigation opened into fraud, false reporting, and embezzlement. Let them try to lie now. Voiceover, steady and quiet. Sometimes you have to die in their world to be reborn in your own. And this time, I wasn't coming back for forgiveness. I was coming back for freedom. Amara learned that family ties can be fragile, easily broken by greed and betrayal. Her parents' and sisters' choice to erase her, forging her death for financial gain, taught her that love and loyalty are not guaranteed, even from those closest. Yet this painful revelation empowered her to reclaim her identity and truth. By confronting their lies with undeniable proof, she realized her strength lies in her resilience and independence. The experience showed her that sometimes, to find freedom and self-worth, one must let go of the illusion of family and forge a new path alone.
The soft jazz music drifted through the elegant dining room of Bellecourt as I sat across from my Aunt Patricia, trying to enjoy what was supposed to be a celebration dinner for my cousin's engagement. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in crisp white linens, while servers in pristine uniforms moved gracefully between guests who clearly belonged in this upscale establishment. I'd chosen Bellecourt specifically because it was Patricia's favorite restaurant, the place she brought all her wealthy friends to impress them, the place she'd mentioned countless times as the pinnacle of fine dining in our city. What she didn't know was why I'd been able to get us a primetime reservation on such short notice, or why the hostess had treated me with unusual deference when we arrived. "This place is exquisite as always," Patricia said, cutting into her $68 filet mignon with obvious satisfaction. "Of course, I suppose you've never been somewhere this nice before, have you, Emma?" I smiled politely and took a sip of the wine that had appeared at our table. A bottle I recognized as being from our reserve collection, though Patricia hadn't questioned why we'd received it without ordering it. "It's lovely," I replied, choosing not to mention that I ate here at least twice a week. Patricia was in her element tonight, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her jewelry catching the light every time she gestured. At 55, she'd built her identity around being the family's success story, the one who'd married well, lived in the right neighborhood, and surrounded herself with the right kind of people. "You know, Emma," she continued, dabbing her lips with the monogrammed napkin, "I've been thinking about your situation lately." "My situation? Here we go. I mean, you're 31 years old and you're still, well, what would you call it? Drifting." I set down my fork carefully. "I wouldn't call it drifting, Aunt Patricia. I work very hard." "Oh, I'm sure you do, sweetheart. But working hard at what? You live in that tiny apartment, you drive that old car, you dress like—" She gestured vaguely at my simple black dress, like someone who shops at discount stores. The dress was actually a $400 piece from a boutique downtown, but I'd learned years ago that explaining such things to Patricia only led to more invasive questions about my finances. "I'm comfortable," I said simply. "Comfortable." Patricia laughed, loud enough that other diners glanced our way. "Darling, comfortable is what people say when they've given up on ever having anything nice. When they've accepted mediocrity." She leaned forward, her voice taking on the tone she used when dispensing life advice to her perceived inferiors. "Look around this restaurant, Emma. Look at the people here, the elegance, the refinement. This is what success looks like. This is what happens when you make smart choices, when you align yourself with the right people, when you understand how the world really works." I glanced around the dining room, taking in the familiar sight of our regular customers enjoying their meals, the staff I knew by name, the artwork I'd personally selected for the walls. "It is beautiful," I agreed. "Beautiful and completely out of your reach," Patricia said with what she probably thought was gentle honesty. "And that's what I want to talk to you about. You need to be realistic about your future." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "My friend Margaret runs a temp agency downtown. She specializes in placing administrative assistants with good families. The pay isn't much, but it's honest work and you'd learn how successful people live. Maybe some of it would rub off on you." I stared at the business card, feeling the familiar mixture of hurt and frustration that came with Patricia's helpful advice. "I appreciate the thought, but I'm happy with my current work." "Current work?" Patricia's eyebrows shot up. "Emma, what you do isn't work. It's some kind of hobby you've convinced yourself is a career. Building websites, managing social media accounts for small businesses. That's not a real profession. That's something teenagers do for pocket money." Her voice was getting louder again, and I could see other diners starting to pay attention to our conversation. "The truth is, darling, and I say this because I love you, you'll never own anything nice if you keep pursuing these fantasies. You'll never have a house like mine, never shop where I shop, never eat at places like this unless someone takes pity on you and brings you along." She gestured grandly around the restaurant. "This establishment, for example. Do you have any idea what it costs to dine here regularly? The wine we're drinking tonight costs $200 a bottle. The meal you're eating costs more than you probably spend on groceries in a week. This isn't your world, Emma, and pretending it is will only make you unhappy." I could feel my cheeks burning with embarrassment, not because of what she was saying about my finances, but because of how loudly she was saying it. The couple at the next table was openly listening now, and I could see our server hovering nearby, clearly uncomfortable with the scene Patricia was creating. "Maybe we should lower our voices," I suggested quietly. "Oh, don't be embarrassed, sweetheart. There's no shame in acknowledging reality. The shame would be in continuing to live in denial." Patricia took another sip of the expensive wine and continued her lecture. "You know what your problem is? You think you're too good for normal jobs. You think you're going to magically become successful doing these little computer projects instead of accepting that some people are meant for bigger things and some people are meant for smaller things. She reached across the table and patted my hand condescendingly. There's nothing wrong with being ordinary, Emma. Most people are ordinary. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start building a realistic life for yourself. That's when Marcus approached our table. Marcus was Bellecourt's general manager, a position he'd held for 3 years since I'd promoted him from assistant manager. He was excellent at his job, professional, discreet, and absolutely dedicated to ensuring every guest had an exceptional experience. "Excuse me, ladies," he said with his usual warm smile. "I hope you're enjoying your evening." Patricia immediately brightened, clearly pleased to be acknowledged by the restaurant's management. "Oh, it's wonderful as always," she gushed. "The service is impeccable, the food is divine. You run such an elegant establishment." "Thank you so much," Marcus replied graciously. Then he turned to me with a slight smile that Patricia couldn't see. "Ms. Williams, I hope everything has been satisfactory this evening? Is there anything at all you need?" I saw Patricia's face change as she processed what Marcus had just said. The way he'd addressed me, the deference in his tone, the slight bow of his head. It was the way staff address someone important, someone with authority. "Everything's been perfect, Marcus. Thank you for checking." "Excellent. And I wanted to let you know that the kitchen has prepared a special dessert to celebrate your guests this evening. Chef Rodriguez thought you might enjoy the chocolate soufflé with the 2018 port from your personal selection." "My personal selection." Patricia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "That sounds lovely," I said. "Please thank Chef Rodriguez for the thoughtful gesture." "Of course. Oh, and Ms. Williams, I have those quarterly reports you requested on my desk whenever you'd like to review them. The profit margins for the third quarter exceeded our projections by 12%. The blood drained from Patricia's face. "Quarterly reports?" she whispered. Marcus nodded professionally. "Yes, the financial overview for Bellecourt and the other properties in the Williams Restaurant Group. Very impressive numbers this quarter." He turned back to me. "Will you be stopping by the office after dinner, or would you prefer I email the full breakdown to you tomorrow?" "Email is fine, Marcus. I'll review everything in the morning and we can discuss any adjustments to the winter menu next week." "Perfect. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Ms. Williams." "Ma'am." He nodded politely to Patricia and walked away. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia sat frozen, her fork still suspended in the air, staring at me like I'd just grown a second head. "Williams Restaurant Group?" she finally managed to croak. I took a sip of wine, the wine from my restaurant's reserve collection, and met her eyes calmly. "Yes. We own 12 restaurants across the city. Bellecourt was actually our first acquisition about 5 years ago." "Acquisition?" "We bought it when the previous owner was struggling financially. Chef Rodriguez and I redesigned the menu, Marcus restructured the service model, and we've turned it into one of the most profitable fine dining establishments in the region." Patricia's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. But you said you do websites and social media." "I do. That's how I started building the business. I helped small restaurants improve their online presence, which led to consulting on their operations, which led to partnership opportunities, which eventually led to acquisitions." I gestured around the dining room that Patricia had been using as an example of everything I could never achieve. "Every restaurant in our group started as a digital marketing client. We helped them grow, and when they were ready to expand or needed capital, we became investors and eventually owners." "How many restaurants did you say?" Patricia's voice was barely above a whisper. 12 currently. We're looking at expanding into the suburban markets next year, plus we're considering a catering division and a line of retail products." A server appeared with the special dessert Marcus had mentioned, an elaborate chocolate creation that I knew cost $35 and was typically reserved for our VIP guests. "Compliments of the house," the server said with a smile. Patricia stared at the dessert like it might explode. "Patricia," I said gently, "I need you to know something. When you said I'd never own anything nice, we were sitting in a restaurant that I've owned for 5 years. The wine you complimented? It's from our cellar. The impeccable service you praised? That's my staff. The elegant establishment you used as an example of success? That's my business." She was shaking now, her face cycling through emotions I couldn't quite identify. "The truth is I do shop where you shop. I do live in a nice house. A very nice house, actually. I just don't feel the need to broadcast my success or use it to make other people feel small." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of my home, a restored Victorian mansion in the city's historic district. I bought this 3 years ago. It's where I live when I'm not staying at the penthouse downtown. Patricia stared at the photo, then back at me, then at the restaurant around us. But your apartment, your car. The apartment is a convenience for late work nights. The car is reliable and efficient. I prefer to invest in my businesses rather than displays of wealth. I took a bite of the chocolate souffle, which was exceptional as always. As for the temp job you offered, I appreciate the thought, but I'm quite busy managing my own company. The Williams Restaurant Group employs 347 people across our properties. We generated $23 million in revenue last year. Patricia made a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. You know what's funny? I continued. You've been lecturing me about accepting reality and understanding how the world works. But the reality is that while you've been judging me for not fitting your image of success, I've been building an actual business empire. I reached into my purse and pulled out my business card, something I'd never bothered to share with family before. Emma Williams, CEO and founder, Williams Restaurant Group. Patricia read aloud, her voice hollow. I started with a $500 website project for a struggling pizza place. 5 years later, I own a multi-million-dollar restaurant empire. Not because I aligned myself with the right people or married well, but because I saw opportunities and worked hard to capitalize on them. The server returned to refill our wine glasses, and I noticed other diners still glancing our way. Patricia had created quite a scene with her earlier lecture, and now they were probably wondering about the dramatic reversal in our conversation. Patricia, I want you to understand something. I don't need your friend Margaret's temp agency. I don't need to learn how successful people live by working for them. I am successful people. She was crying now, tears of embarrassment and shock streaming down her carefully made-up face. Emma, I don't understand. If you have all this, if you've built all this, why didn't you tell the family? Why let us think? Think what? That I was a failure? That I was drifting through life without purpose or direction? I set down my spoon and looked at her seriously. I let you think that because every time I tried to talk about my work, you dismissed it as a hobby. When I mentioned helping restaurants with their marketing, you said it wasn't a real job. When I talked about business opportunities, you told me to be more realistic. But if you'd known I was successful, you would have treated me differently. But success isn't what made me worthy of respect, Patricia. I was always worthy of respect. Marcus appeared again, this time with a bottle of champagne. Ms. Williams, this just arrived from the kitchen. Chef Rodriguez wanted to congratulate you on the positive review in Metro magazine. They called Bellecourt the crown jewel of the city's dining scene. He opened the champagne with practiced efficiency and poured 2 glasses. Also, I wanted to mention that the reservation system shows we're booked solid for the next 6 weeks. The waiting list is over 200 people. Patricia watched this exchange in stunned silence. That's wonderful news, Marcus. Please make sure the entire staff knows how much I appreciate their hard work. Of course. Oh, and the architect called about the renovation plans for the new location downtown. She can meet with you Thursday if that works with your schedule. Perfect. Send me the details tomorrow. After Marcus left, Patricia finally found her voice again. Emma, I owe you an apology. I owe you the biggest apology anyone has ever owed anyone. You don't owe me anything, Patricia. But I hope this helps you understand that success comes in many forms, and judging people based on appearances or preconceptions is usually a mistake. I raised my champagne glass. Here's to family dinners that end with better understanding. Patricia lifted her glass with a shaking hand. Here's to my niece who built an empire while I wasn't paying attention. We clinked glasses, and for the first time all evening Patricia was quiet. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Of course. The way Marcus talks to you, the way the staff treats you, they really respect you, don't they? It's not just because you own the place. I smiled. I hope so. I try to treat everyone with dignity and fairness. I remember what it was like to be dismissed and underestimated, so I make sure that doesn't happen to the people who work for me. Is that a reference to how I've treated you? Partly. But also to how I was treated when I was starting out. A lot of people didn't take me seriously when I was young and trying to build something. I learned that respect has to be earned through actions, not demanded through position or wealth. Patricia nodded slowly. I think I'm beginning to understand that. The evening concluded with Patricia asking genuine questions about my business, my plans, and my vision for the future. For the first time in years, we had a real conversation instead of a one-sided lecture about my shortcomings. As we prepared to leave, Marcus approached with the check, but I waved him away. "Family dinner," I explained. "Put it on my house account." Patricia stared at me as we walked toward the exit. "House account? I eat here regularly. It's easier than processing payments each time." The valet brought my car around. Not the old Honda Patricia had been criticizing, but the Tesla I actually drove most days. "Emma," Patricia said as I opened the driver's door. "Thank you for tonight. Not just for dinner, but for opening my eyes. Thank you for being willing to listen. Can I ask one more favor?" "Sure. Next time we have dinner, can you choose the restaurant again? Because clearly you have much better taste than I gave you credit for." I laughed. "I'd be happy to. And Patricia? You're always welcome at any of our restaurants. Family gets the VIP treatment." As I drove home to my Victorian mansion, I reflected on how completely the evening had changed. Patricia had learned that her assumptions about success and worth were deeply flawed, and I'd learned that sometimes the most effective way to change someone's mind is to let them discover the truth themselves. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. The champagne was a nice touch. "See you tomorrow for the staff meeting." Tomorrow I would go back to being the quiet CEO who preferred running her business to talking about it. But tonight I was satisfied knowing that at least one person understood that success isn't always what it appears to be, and that judging people by their appearances is almost always a mistake. The restaurant industry was competitive and demanding, but it had taught me that the most important ingredient in any successful establishment wasn't the food or the atmosphere. It was respect. Respect for your customers, respect for your staff, and respect for the work itself. Too bad it had taken 5 years and a public revelation for my own family to learn that lesson. I was sitting in my corner office on the 42nd floor of the Sterling building, reviewing quarterly reports for my senior care empire, when my phone rang at exactly 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. The caller ID showed Grandma Rose, and I immediately smiled as I picked up, expecting our usual cheerful conversation about her garden or the neighborhood cats she'd been feeding. "Hello, sweetheart," came her familiar voice, but something was terribly wrong. She sounded shaky, uncertain, like she'd been crying. "Grandma? What's happening? You sound upset." "Well, dear, your mother just called about an hour ago. She says..." Grandma's voice broke and I could hear her struggling not to cry. "She says they're moving me to some place called Sunset Manor tomorrow morning. That my bags are already packed and sitting by the front door." My blood went cold. Sunset Manor. The premium senior living facility that I'd purchased 3 years ago as the flagship property of my Golden Years Properties portfolio. The same facility my mother had been praising for months whenever she visited Grandma, never knowing I owned every inch of its manicured grounds, every thread of its luxury bedding, every piece of equipment in its state-of-the-art medical wing. "Grandma, did she say why? Did something happen?" "She said I'm getting too old to live alone safely. That it's for my own good, that I'll be happier with people my own age." I could hear her crying softly now. "But sweetheart, I love my little house on Maple Street. I've lived there for 43 years. Your grandfather planted those rose bushes in the front yard the summer before you were born. Every morning I make my coffee and sit on the porch swing he built, watching those roses bloom." I felt rage building in my chest like a furnace being stoked. My 78-year-old grandmother, the woman who'd essentially raised me while my parents traveled constantly for their business ventures, was being shipped off like an inconvenience. The woman who taught me everything about kindness, hard work, integrity, and treating every person with dignity regardless of their age or station in life. "Grandma, listen to me very carefully. Don't pack anything. Don't sign any papers. Don't let anyone pressure you into anything. I'll handle this situation completely." "But dear, your mother seems so certain, so official. She had all these brochures and forms. She said the room is already reserved and paid for. Trust me, okay? I promise you no one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go. I love you and I'll call you back within the hour." I hung up and immediately pulled up the contact information I knew by heart. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as I accessed the internal directory for all my properties. "Sunset Manor, this is Rebecca speaking. How may I assist you today?" "Rebecca, This is Ms. Sarah Williams, owner of Golden Years Properties and CEO of the entire network. I need you to blacklist the Thompson family permanently from all our facilities. No reservations, no tours, no contact whatsoever. Of course, Ms. Williams. I'll input that immediately. Should I note a specific reason in our security system? Family conflict and attempted elder abuse. They're not to set foot on any of our properties under any circumstances. Alert security at all 47 locations. Understood completely. I'll update all locations within the next 15 minutes. I leaned back in my leather chair, looking out at the city skyline while thinking about how we'd gotten to this point. For the past 5 years, my mother Patricia and my stepfather David had been living what they believed was the high life. Expensive dinners at 5-star restaurants, luxury vacations to Europe and the Caribbean, designer clothes from Nordstrom and Saks, spa treatments, country club memberships. What they didn't know was that every single penny of their extravagant lifestyle was being funded by the trust fund I'd established specifically for Grandma Rose. A trust that I controlled completely and had been personally funding with millions from my business empire. You see, 3 years ago when Grandma had started worrying about her finances and whether her Social Security would be enough to maintain her independence, I'd quietly taken over all her expenses without her knowledge. Her mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, medical bills, home maintenance, property taxes. Everything was being paid through what she believed was her late husband's enhanced pension plan and some good investments he'd apparently made decades ago. In reality, I'd been covering nearly $8,000 a month to ensure she never worried about money again. But my mother had gotten greedy. She'd convinced Grandma to sign financial power of attorney, just in case something happens, and had been slowly redirecting that money to fund her own increasingly extravagant lifestyle. She thought she was stealing from an elderly woman's modest savings account. She had no idea she was stealing from my $340 million senior care empire that employed over 3,000 people across 6 states. The irony was delicious. Every time Mom bought a new designer handbag or booked another expensive vacation, she was spending money that originated from the very business empire she had no idea her daughter had built. She was funding her lifestyle by stealing from the trust fund of the woman who'd raised me to be successful. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Mom's number flashed on the screen. "Sarah, what the hell did you do?" she screamed before I could even say hello, her voice shrill with panic and rage. "Hello, Mother. How's your evening going? Don't you dare get smart with me. Sunset Manor just called and said our reservation is cancelled. They said the Thompson family is permanently blacklisted from their facility. What did you tell them?" I couldn't help but smile as I spun my chair to face the window. I told them the truth. That the Thompson family isn't welcome at any of their properties. This is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what lies you've been spreading about us, but I'm calling their corporate office right now to straighten this out. Good luck with that approach. There was a pause filled with heavy breathing. What do you mean by that? I mean good luck calling the corporate office. Though I should warn you, the CEO is currently in a meeting and probably won't be available for the rest of the evening. How would you possibly know the CEO's schedule? Because I am the CEO, Mother. Complete silence on the other end of the line. That's absolutely impossible. Golden Years Properties. 47 senior living facilities across 6 states including California, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Florida, and Colorado. Annual revenue of $340 million. Current market valuation approaching $2.1 billion. We employ 3,247 people and serve over 8,000 residents. Would you like me to email you our latest quarterly investor report? I could hear her breathing heavily, struggling to process this information. You're lying. You're just trying to scare me. Am I? Tell me, Mother, how exactly did you think Grandma was affording that beautiful house on Maple Street? The one with the completely paid-off mortgage? The fancy comprehensive medical insurance that covers everything including experimental treatments? The reason she never worries about grocery bills or utility payments or property taxes. More silence, longer this time. You thought you were so incredibly clever, didn't you? Getting power of attorney, slowly redirecting her trust fund payments to your own personal accounts. Did you really think a 78-year-old woman was generating $8,000 a month from Grandpa's modest pension and Social Security? We needed. You were stealing from your own mother. Except you weren't stealing from her modest retirement savings. You were stealing from me, from my business, from money I was providing to ensure her comfort and security. I pulled up the detailed financial records on my computer screen, scrolling through months of transactions. Let's see. Last month you spent $3,200 at Nordstrom, $1,800 at that luxury spa in Scottsdale, $4,500 on David's Country Club membership, $2,300 at Williams-Sonoma, and $6,800 on that weekend trip to Napa Valley. All paid for with money you thought belonged to Grandma. Sarah, I can explain all of this. Here's what's going to happen, Mother. You're going to get in your car right now and drive to Grandma's house. You're going to apologize sincerely for scaring her with this nursing home nonsense. You're going to unpack whatever bags you've packed for her. And you're going to promise never to mention moving her anywhere ever again. But the money situation. The money will continue flowing to Grandma exactly like it always has, ensuring her complete comfort and security. But your little allowance, that generous funding of your lifestyle, that ends tonight at midnight. I could hear David in the background asking urgently what was happening, his voice getting louder and more agitated. Oh, and Mother, you might want to check your credit cards in about an hour. And your bank account. And that lovely Mercedes lease you thought Grandma was paying for. And the rent on that upscale townhouse in Willow Creek Estates. You wouldn't dare. I absolutely would. Everything gets turned off at midnight tonight. The house you're renting? That's mine too. Willow Creek Estates. I bought the entire residential development 2 years ago when the original developer went bankrupt. Your lease expires at the end of this month and it won't be renewed. I heard her gasp audibly. Don't worry though. I'm not completely heartless. I'll give you 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Somewhere you can actually afford on David's car salesman salary at Henderson Motors. Sarah, please. We're family. Family helps family. Family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family doesn't try to dump their 78-year-old mother in a nursing home so they can sell her house and pocket the proceeds. Yes, I know about that plan too. I saw the communications with Morrison Real Estate about getting a market evaluation. How could you possibly know about? Because I own Morrison Real Estate too, Mother. I own 43% of the commercial real estate in this city. Grandma's house is worth $340,000 in the current market. Were you planning to split that money 3 ways while she sat in a nursing home, thinking her family had abandoned her? The line was quiet for a long moment except for the sound of muffled arguing between Mom and David. What do you want from us? What will it take to fix this? I want you to become better people. But since that seems developmentally impossible at this stage of your lives, I'll settle for you staying completely away from Grandma unless you're visiting as genuinely loving family members. No more financial discussions. No more talk of moving her anywhere. No more attempting to access her accounts or redirect her funds. And if we don't agree to these terms, then you'll discover exactly how many businesses I own in this city. The grocery stores, the gas stations, the restaurants, the medical facilities, the banks. It's amazing how quickly life becomes extraordinarily inconvenient when you're persona non grata everywhere you need to conduct business. I heard David say something angry and threatening in the background, his voice getting closer to the phone. Oh, and David? That Chevy dealership where you work? Henderson Motors? I don't own that one. Yet. But I do own the Ford dealership directly across the street, and we've been considering expansion into the Chevy market. Amazing how quickly a successful dealership can lose customers when a competitor starts offering better deals and superior service. Another long pause filled with whispered arguments. You've changed, Sarah. You used to be such a sweet, accommodating girl. I grew up, Mother. I learned that kindness without firm boundaries is just enabling bad behavior. Grandma taught me that, actually, along with the critical importance of hard work, integrity, and treating people with genuine respect. Lessons you apparently missed during your childhood. So what happens now? Now you go apologize to Grandma for scaring her. Then you start looking for jobs that will actually support the lifestyle you've been pretending to afford. And maybe, if you can prove over time that you've genuinely changed, we can slowly rebuild some kind of authentic relationship. And Grandma's situation? Grandma gets to live in her beautiful house, surrounded by Grandpa's rose bushes, for as long as she wants. Her medical care, her groceries, her utilities, her property maintenance. Everything taken care of exactly like always. The only difference is you won't be stealing from her anymore. I could hear Mom crying now, finally understanding the full scope of what she'd lost. Sarah, I never meant for it to go this far. We got used to having money. We thought she had more than she needed, that she wouldn't miss it. She does have more than she needs, as I make sure of it. But that money was supposed to give her peace of mind and security, not fund your shopping sprees and luxury vacations. Is there any way we can fix this relationship? I thought carefully for a moment. Maybe. But it starts with genuine, demonstrable change. Get real jobs. Support yourselves. Visit Grandma because you love her, not because you want something from her. Prove that you can be trustworthy people. And our housing situation? I'll give you 60 days instead of 30. And I won't blacklist you from other rental properties in the city. But the free ride ends tonight. Permanently. After I hung up, I immediately called Grandma back to check on her. Hello, sweetheart. Grandma, how are you feeling now? Well, it's the strangest thing. Your mother just called about 20 minutes ago. She was crying, apologizing profusely for scaring me about the nursing home. She said there was some kind of terrible misunderstanding about my living situation. That's good to hear. She also said something very strange. She said I should be incredibly proud of you, that you've built something amazing with your life. What did she mean by that? I smiled, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening darkness. Just that I've been working hard, Grandma. Building a business that helps take care of seniors and ensures they're treated with dignity. That's wonderful, dear. I always knew you'd do something special with your life. Even when you were little, you were always so thoughtful about other people, so determined to make things fair. I learned that from you. Oh, sweetheart. You know what? Your mother asked if she could come help me with some gardening this weekend. She said she wants to learn more about caring for those roses your grandfather planted. My heart softened slightly. Maybe there was genuine hope for change after all. That sounds really nice, Grandma. And she mentioned that she and David are going to start looking for real work again. Apparently they've been retired long enough, whatever that means. I chuckled. Apparently so. Sarah, can I ask you something important? Of course, anything. That senior living place they mentioned, Sunset Manor. Do you know anything about their reputation? I paused carefully. Why do you ask? Well, I was just thinking. If I ever do need that kind of care someday when I'm truly unable to manage independently, I'd want to make sure it's a good place. Somewhere that treats people with genuine dignity and respect. I can personally guarantee that Sunset Manor treats every single resident like beloved family, Grandma. They have beautiful gardens for walking, excellent medical care, and staff who genuinely care about the people they serve. But that's a decision for the future, if ever. That's very reassuring to know. Sometimes I worry about getting older, becoming a burden on the people I love. Grandma Rose, you could never ever be a burden. You're the person who taught me that everyone deserves respect and care, regardless of their age or circumstances. I promise you'll always have choices and you'll always be surrounded by people who love you unconditionally. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you too, more than you'll ever know. After we hung up, I sat in my office looking out at the city lights, thinking about legacy and family and what really matters. Tomorrow I'd implement some new policies across all my properties, stronger protections against elder abuse, better family screening processes, expanded support services for seniors who wanted to age in place, and enhanced staff training on recognizing and preventing financial exploitation. My phone buzzed with a text message from Mom. Thank you for giving us a chance to do better. We won't waste this opportunity. Maybe people could change. Maybe families could heal given proper boundaries and consequences. But one thing was absolutely certain. Grandma Rose would never have to worry about being treated as anything less than the treasure she was. Not on my watch. 6 months later, I was having Sunday dinner at Grandma's house. A tradition we'd established after the Sunset Manor incident. Mom and David were there too, both working full-time jobs and renting a modest apartment they could actually afford on their combined salaries. Sarah, Mom said as we cleared the dishes together, I never properly thanked you for what you did. For what exactly? For stopping me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I almost threw away the most precious relationship I have because I was selfish, greedy, and short-sighted. I looked through the kitchen window at Grandma, who was patiently teaching David how to properly prune her beloved rose bushes. We all make mistakes, Mom. What matters is learning from them and becoming better people. I've been thinking about getting my real estate license, she said quietly. Maybe working specifically with seniors who want to downsize or modify their homes to age and place safely. I think I could help people navigate those decisions better now, having learned what I've learned. I smiled genuinely. That sounds like truly meaningful work. It does. And Sarah? That business you built, taking care of seniors, treating them with dignity, it's exactly what this world needs more of. As I drove home that evening, I passed the illuminated Sunset Manor sign. Tomorrow I'd be breaking ground on our newest facility. One designed specifically for seniors who wanted independent living with comprehensive support services available as needed. But tonight I was just grateful that sometimes, the best revenge is actually love. Love strong enough to set firm boundaries, enforce real consequences, and create space for people to become better versions of themselves. Grandma's roses were blooming more beautifully than ever this year.